What's up, homie?
Trying to hang in there. What are you up to?
Same, dude. Hanging in there like a loose tooth.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I feel
Old,
you
beard,
on
old,
that.
old bearded out wearing his Wounded Warrior project.
Mhm. Best believe it. I'm eating it up.
Yeah.
Allison gets mad at me every time we go to Lowe's. I park in the veteran only spot. She's like, "That's meant for old people or older people." And I was like, "Heck no, that's me. I'm a veteran. That's my spot, you know."
Yeah,
But
man.
yeah, this I've been growing this beard for about 5 months now. It's getting pretty nice.
Yeah, that's legit, dude. Honestly. I can't wait to grow a beard. And even when I get a chance, I can't, my genetics just suck. I got weak genetics,
Yeah, it's almost as good as Ermin's used to be. Remember how he could grow one like this in about 3 weeks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Super lucky, man. So how
yeah.
how's it feel living back in Alabama?
Oh man, that's awesome. Just being back home, there's nothing like home. You can't beat it. And I mean, I know you kind of know what I'm talking about when it's down here in the South. Since you grew up in Georgia, it's just small town. There you can't beat it.
No, you can't beat it at all. The hospitality and just
Mm.
people in general, just saying hey to you when you pass by and
Yeah, or
the door open for you. And
open the door for you. Just hey, how are you? And you've never even seen this person before. It feels good to be back in that environment because I mean, Fayetteville and Fort Bragg's nothing like that.
no, and it's worse when you get in bigger cities, man. Like
Oh yeah.
before I joined the service, I spent about a year out in California, and dude, it was like a totally different world.
Oh yeah, dude. I can only imagine. I couldn't do it. I don't think I could do it.
No, yeah, it's just there's so many people. So you get that hospitality when you're in the South because you're in
Yeah,
smaller towns, like you
yeah,
said. But when there's so many people, it's just overwhelming and people walking by, and it's an inconvenience to try to stop somebody and say hey to them or
yeah.
have
Because
a
I mean,
conversation with them.
everybody's busy. They got multiple things going on at once, and they ain't got time for nobody else really.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. So you started your own business, right?
I did. I sure did. At the end of July,
And what's the name of it?
Veteran Cleaning Solutions is a pressure washing business.
Okay. And when I don't even know what they call it now. It used to be Soldier for Life, but I don't know if it's still Soldier
It's
for
still
Life or
SFL tap. It's like Soldier for Life, and then hyphen transition assistance program.
okay.
But it
So
used to
when
be tap when a long time ago.
yeah. So did you try to do like a business plan and model and everything when you were going through SFL tap to get to put together like a business concept or whatnot and to get loans, or you just did it on your
No,
own?
I did it completely on my own. To be honest with you, man, I don't remember if I told you or not, but I was a platoon sergeant in the MICO in 3rd Brigade. And dude, I didn't have time for nothing. Like anything for myself, I didn't have time for because we were on what used to be GRF. We were on IRF. And let me tell you, that's that's a different beast to handle, you know, especially when you're responsible for about 45 people. But so I say all that to say I basically worked until I had no other option to go through my out processing, procedures. So I didn't do any of the additional tracks that you can sign up for or anything like that. I was able to somehow do all of my classes online, so I didn't, even go in person. And I was like, I was almost a half a day away from not in processing in time for me to move home to Alabama. That's just how crazy it was, busy and stuff. But I moved home and I had pressure washed the house that I had in North Carolina before, because when I bought that house, it was pressure washed before I moved in. So I was like, all right, I'll do the same thing, make it look nice for these people coming in and moving in.
Yep.
So I went to Tractor Supply. I bought about a $300 to $400 pressure washer, and I just started watching YouTube videos and on how professionals do it. And then once I got to the driveway, my driveway was completely filthy, and I was just it took me about a day or so because I was using the wand only, and it was just fascinating at how you compare a dirty portion of the concrete to a freshly cleaned.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was real satisfying. Excuse me. So I moved home and I was talking to Allison, and I was like, look, I've always wanted to start a business. I said, I enjoy this. I can do this, so what do you think? And she was on board for it. So I did it. And, I was real kind of nervous and scared because I'd never been in the business world at all. I didn't really know anything going into it, but I just took that leap of faith. And slowly but surely, people started coming to me needing driveway cleaning, house cleaning, so on and so forth. And just we'll say from the end of July till now, I've been able to gross about $13,000 to $14,000 worth of jobs. So being a brand new business in a small town is definitely hard for a lot of people. But one thing the military taught me was my work ethic. So I've just been hustling and doing everything I can to earn people's business. And I created that Facebook page, and I post every job that I do before and afters. That way, everyone can see the quality of my work. But it's getting there. It's not where I want it to be just yet, though. But I think come springtime, I think I'll pick up pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, just getting started, like you said, it takes a while, and then word of mouth will spread. Somebody come over and be like, "Oh man, your driveway looks good," and you're like, "Yeah, I had this company do it," and they refer you, and then so if you get one person, if you look at like that person's, think like professional businesses and like realtors and stuff call it your scope of influence, right? So that person has a scope of influence. So they may have family members come over, friends come over, and that one person knows 30 people, you know what I'm saying? And those are 30 potential other customers that you could get. Not like everyone's going to do it, but every time your business name's mentioned, you have to be mentioned or have FaceTime with like 60 people to get like one client, right? Or one customer.
Yeah.
So if their scope of influence is 30 people, that one person may give you one other person, in the return of a job, and then so on and so forth. So.
Oh yeah. And, I didn't know this existed, but one thing that's helped me, besides word of mouth, is Facebook marketing. You can pay for advertisement through Facebook, and say, it targets a certain, area, say where I live, 25 miles in a radius from where I live is where they will advertise my post to. And I can set the age range. I can set the sex, whether, male or female. So I just set it to, I do a couple big cities around me. I enter those. So I've got about, we'll say now, instead of a 25-mile radius of potential customers, I'm advertising to about 100-mile radius around where I'm at. And, and what I like about it is, say I spend $50 and I want the ad to run 7 days, right? It's going to tell me, based off of those two numbers, how many people my post should reach in theory.
Yep.
You know, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think total since I've created that page, I've reached about 60,000 people. Now, obviously, I haven't had that much business, but I'm still getting my name out there at the end of the day. And that's what matters.
Yeah. And there's a thing, I mean, if you have a little spare time, it may be something worth looking into. Some people, if you just got money to burn, it wouldn't be worth your time, if you wanted to pay somebody else to do it. But Google Ad Services is a big thing too. So when somebody searches for your business to pop up,
Oh, yeah.
your business to be recommended, and Google as a platform, I don't know exactly what you have to put into Google for it to come up, but they have a bunch of online trainings, certificates that are 100% free, and they will teach you how to make those ads, push those things, and all that training that you do. Like the Google Ad Service thing is like 2 hours worth of stuff, and then you take an exam at the end, you get certified. So those are things for people to do as like freelance workers on the side to help other businesses, smaller businesses. But you being a small business, if you wanted to save yourself money and know how to do it on your own and run your own like social media ads and whatnot, that Google stuff will tell you and teach you exactly how to do it so you can set your business up to get in front of more and more people.
Yeah.
Definitely,
And I've
definitely look into that.
Yeah, I've got it's called a Google My Business account. So basically, whenever you search for a business, whatever business it may be in the Google search bar, now mine appears. And what a lot of professional pressure washing companies do is they rely heavily on those 5-star recommendations. And because, I mean, the more you get, obviously, the more a potential customer is going to be inclined to come to you instead of somebody else.
Yeah.
So I haven't put as much effort into that probably as I should. I've been relying solely on Facebook right now. But the problem is, I can come to your house, right? And I can clean your house, the outside of your house, driveway, everything, and it look immaculate. And then I ask you before I leave, hey, would you mind writing a review and giving me a 5-star rating? And you're like, oh, yeah, man, for sure. I got you. But then, life happens basically and you forget. And that's just kind of how it seems to be around here. People just will tell you they're going to do it and they do, but they're more than likely going to forget to do it. So that's why I haven't really put a whole lot of effort into that, because I feel like, like in football, our coach used to say, let your work do the talking. I feel like that's how I should run my business. I let my work talk for me, and maybe that's not the right way, but I feel like that's a good way, because that just shows customers that I'm 100% confident in what I do and what I can bring to the table to your house and clean it, and almost make it look new again.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I mean, that is a huge thing. Like people will, because they don't know you, you're just somebody that they potentially contacted and said, hey, come do my stuff. And then when you ask them to give them a rate, and people are just lazy, that's kind of what it boils down to. You want them to do that because, that's what I do. If I'm looking for any person to do whatever, I'll scroll through, and whoever has a bunch of, like, I don't just look at how many stars, like ideally, I want them to be 4 stars or higher is kind of what I look for. And then once I see 4-star and higher companies, I'm like, okay, out of those stars, how many reviews do they have? Because if it's 5 stars and I only got 3 reviews and the company's been in business for 10 years, it's like something ain't adding up. You know what I mean?
Family members trying to get, give them a good word.
They made 3 fake accounts and gave their self ratings, and they hadn't had any more. But every business is going to have a bad thing, but it's the, I look at the overall percentage. I'm like, hey, do they have X amount of reviews that I feel like this company should have? And then out of those, do they have 75% or more that are good? And if it is that way, then that's who I go with. I just, without getting into it, you and I talked, I hired an attorney for a situation I'm in now. And that's how I found the attorney. I'm like,
Mhm.
let me find somebody that's got really good reviews, blah, blah, blah. And I looked on multiple things. It wasn't just the Google reviews. It was like, okay, this attorney needs to be in some kind of, I found websites that rate like law firms and stuff. So I went to those and looked at their reviews too, just so they didn't, manipulate Google somehow or
Yeah.
something like that. And then that's how I picked who I was going to get and pay my, because to me, I paid a lot of money for that. That's a lot of money to put out there.
Oh yeah.
So I had to do my research.
Oh yeah. And one thing that I do as well is I'll go look at all the bad reviews and
Yeah.
judge that too, man. I'll be honest with you, like, because I can talk to all my customers and say, hey, will you leave me that good review, that 5-star review? And they'll just do it to, kind of help me out maybe. But the ones that are like telling the truth, that's what I want to see. And, a lot of those may be, a little extended as far as, the truth on those bad reviews. But for the most part, like, if a company messes up bad enough, I mean, people are going to know about it. And that's what I look for too, before I just bring somebody to my house and hire them to do work, maybe even inside, because I got valuables, kids, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm not just going to trust anybody just because you're a business.
Yeah. And I do the same thing. Like I had been personally recommended by two other attorneys, law firms. They're like, hey, this guy specializes in this stuff, like contact him. And then two other individuals that were like, hey, I personally know somebody that used this guy. So I'd had references to that dude, but I looked
Yeah.
at his reviews and he had a ton of bad reviews. And it was like, could never get him on the phone. He never contacted him back. Like it was always like lack of communication. I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not risking it. And like I said, bad reviews are bad reviews. Somebody give you a 3-star and is like, hey, you know, uh, this company came to pressure wash my house, and when he was pressure washing, they had vinyl siding that was old, and you like, damaged a piece of the
Yeah.
vinyl siding, and they were just upset about it. Okay, well, you
Stuff
know,
happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. That is what it is. But if it's like, oh, um, dude came and I mean, I don't even know how to make up a scenario for
Showed
a
up.
bad review for pressure washing, but it'd be like contacted them. They said they were going to come, never showed up. Then I recontacted them. He said, they got in an emergency. He had an emergency situation, family situation, and he wouldn't be able to get to me till Friday. And then Friday came and you never showed up again.
Yeah.
Those are reviews I look at. I'm like, damn,
Oh yeah. And
dude
that
got hit
and
up twice, had two chances, never even came to get paid.
dude, I know. And another big thing with a lot of newer pressure washers is, so I'd say probably 85% of all pressure washing companies, the primary chemical that we use is bleach, and it's an industrial grade. So it's normally your average is about 12.5%. And then you can dilute it to whatever percent that you need it to for a certain house. But a lot of newcomers don't really understand that, the possible bad effects of bleach, like, for example, killing people's shrubs and plants, flower beds, whatnot. And that's one thing that a lot of people complain about with pressure washers, because they don't take the necessary steps to protect people's homes the way that they should. So they'll just go out there and throw bleach everywhere, not even rinse it or anything like that, and just completely kill someone's entire landscape if they're not careful enough.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, my dad owned his own landscaping business, but at the same time, he had to find other jobs because landscaping's only when the grass is growing. Other than that, in the fall we would get jobs for doing leaves, but in the winter it was nothing. So he
Mm-hmm.
had to find random jobs. So I did my fair share of pressure washing. I've cool sealed driveways that were, asphalt. We've done all kinds of stuff, rebuilt people's bathroom floors that had tub had leaked forever and their joists were rotted out, and we just replaced the whole thing, joists, subfloor, all that. Uh, a lot of the times, depending on how bad it is and depending on the material, you don't even have to use bleach because the pressure of the water, just like the driveway, most driveways, if they're concrete or whatnot, you just water. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily, in some circumstances, have to use chemicals depending on how bad it is, the material, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I'd say if you've got a bunch of algae, mold, mildew growth, it's all organic growth, and bleach is the best killer for that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So if you put that on, on vinyl siding, but you've also got it on the driveway, that's the best thing to use, hands down. But the trick is you add what's called surfactant to your bleach. And it's basically a detergent like soap, and that helps the bleach stick to whatever surface you're spraying it on. So I wouldn't do that for concrete. I just do straight bleach. But for a house wash, I add that detergent, helps it stick, and I'll just let it dwell for 5-10 minutes maybe, and then I'll rinse it off. And it's so easy and the good thing about doing that is it's called soft washing, and it's essentially letting the chemicals do the work for you, right? But the good thing about it is you're not using pressure at all to touch someone's vinyl siding that you may or may not dent, or get, if you shoot up underneath the vinyl siding, now you got water under all the siding, and now you're creating more problems.
Yeah.
So and it depends on if it's a hard type surface like brick, concrete, so on and so forth, then yeah, you're gonna need pressure regardless to get that clean. But siding of a house and wood like decks and stuff, you don't hardly ever want to use pressure because you're gonna damage it one way or the other, especially wood.
So what do you is it, y'all call it a soft wash or something?
Yeah, that's the technique. So you got pressure washing and you got soft washing. And the biggest difference is soft washing, you're letting the chemicals do the work for you, and you're not using pressure. There's basically the same amount of pressure as what will come out of a garden hose.
Yeah. Sweet, dude.
Yes, and it helps protect me as a business owner. Now I'm not having to pay a maybe $2,500 deductible because I messed up someone's house, roof, landscape, whatever it may be.
So did you, when you started the company, did you just do like, did you just go on like a website and create an LLC yourself and file it with the state, or how'd you go about doing it?
That's exactly what I did. Again, like I had zero help with this entire process. So everything that I did, I've learned it on my own. And I spent, hours each night just researching, trying to figure out what is the process to get your LLC established.
Yeah.
So, I found everything that I needed on Alabama's website, the state website. And it was, at first, I didn't really quite, understand the entire process. So I made a couple of mistakes in the beginning, but once I overcame that, it was so simple. I could do everything online. I had to pay some fees, whatever, but it was, in my opinion, it was relatively cheap compared to what I thought I was going to have to pay. The only, I would say, negative is it kind of took a little bit. I'd say a couple of weeks, not anything extreme, but I was just ready for it to happen overnight, and unfortunately that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
But then I just had to go to my county courthouse and get a business license for the county, and I have to renew that every year. And then that's really about it. And then, I got my insurance through, I used BB&T for my bank, and they found me, I guess somebody, that they use, some company that they use for insurance. They sent me to that company, and it was it was an easy process, and it's good liability insurance, and it's relatively cheap too. So that's the good thing about pressure washing is your overhead's really not, it's not overzealous. It's very minimal overhead
Yeah.
cost to run this business. You can 100 times your money, your profit in some cases. Especially if all your equipment's paid for, then all you're paying for is bleach, soap, and gas. That's it.
Yep. Do you pull a trailer or you just put it in the bed of your truck?
Oh man, I wish I had a trailer so bad. So I've got a commercial pressure washer. I've got a 20-inch surface cleaner, a 100-foot Flexzilla garden hose, and then a couple other things, and a little giant ladder. And I have to pick up and put every bit of that in the bed of my truck. And that pressure washer, like, it don't sound too bad, but let me tell you,
Oh yeah.
dude, that commercial pressure washer I have is every bit of 100 pounds. And I have to basically deadlift that thing from the ground up to the bed of my truck. And I've got a 6-inch lifted truck, so it's not easy at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Because like I said, my dad did a fair amount of pressure washing as on the side and everything. He paid like $1,200. This was 12 years, 14 years ago. He paid $1,200 for this thing, and I couldn't tell you, it was heavy. It had wheels and a handle, and you definitely it's a 2-man lift to get it in the bed of a truck. Luckily, he had a trailer, so we just put the bed of the trailer down, pull that thing up on there. But that son of a gun was heavy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's companies that make soft wash setups where they're called skids. It's an aluminum pallet basically, and they weld everything that you need onto that pallet, and then they'll put it in the bed of your truck, and you can work from your truck. And that's something that that I really would like to have and could use definitely, but a lot of them are so expensive. Like, it's absurd at how much some of these setups are. There's, without naming companies or anything, there's one, and if I had the money, I'd buy it right now. Absolutely. But for a trailer setup, now it's got everything you need and probably more, but it's like 18 grand, and the business ain't quite there yet,
Yeah.
But that would basically make my time on the job more efficient. I can get in and out of there quick, and now instead of doing one house only a day or maybe 2, I could potentially knock out 3 or 4 in a day. So that's the goal. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's just it's gonna take a little bit more time.
Yeah. Nothing happens overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing, because like I said earlier, I wish everything would just, overnight, everything be good to go. But you just got to have the patience to last. And then hopefully one day, you can see the benefits of your fruits and labor.
Have you thought about like finding websites and building like your thing out and doing like flyers or pamphlets or cards, and just like randomly, like in neighborhoods around your place that are decent, like wealthy kind of neighborhoods where the houses are like in the upper 2s or 3s, where you have that whole neighborhood's just a nice thing, just going through there and putting flyers and pamphlets in people's mailboxes and stuff?
So funny thing about that is I ordered 1,000 business cards through Vistaprint. I paid like, it was maybe $100 for 1,000 cards and for one of their graphic designers to help me design my business card. And I went to 3 different real estate companies here locally and passed out a total of 75 of them. And I was pressure washing an entire house in this, upscale community. and I had all my business cards with me. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put some in every single mailbox in this neighborhood. And that's what I did. I did that for like an entire day. I should have known this. I didn't even think about it. But come to find out, it is federally illegal to put stuff in people's mailbox, like business cards. and and I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know what? God, I feel so stupid because I should have known like only mailmen or women can put mail in someone's mailbox. It's illegal for anyone else to, especially a business trying to, advertise and stuff. You definitely can't do that. But what I can do is create door hangers, and I can go put those on every person's door, in the county if I wanted to. So that's something that I've been, trying to come up with at like a design and layout and all that stuff for. But I think I'm going to hold off on doing that until I can run a pretty good special, because if I'm not helping someone save money and making it sound like a good deal, they'll probably just throw it in the trash can, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I know that's going to happen regardless, but I'd like to at least see my investment into this marketing strategy, help me profit a little bit.
Yeah, because that was like one thing that popped in my head. I'm like, hey man, you just go around in a real nice upscale neighborhood and put them door handles on doors.
Yep.
Maybe, because the reason I mention that is because it's people that live in homes that cost an X amount of or above, and they have HOAs and all that stuff. They're not going to get out there and pressure wash their own house. They got money to pay you to come and do it.
Yep.
So that would be a good market. I don't know how to get a hold of like the HOA, like whoever.
Well, hang on. Let me cut these lights on. It's a little dark in here.
Yeah.
But the bad thing about where I live is there might be a handful, but I don't know any of them. But there's hardly any HOAs around here.
Yeah.
There might be one or two in an entire county. But, people like a buddy of mine, he pressure washes for a guy down in Orlando. And this guy, his name's Bobby Walker. He started his business with $90, and now he's doing $500,000 a year down in Orlando. But he can do that because of how rich an area Orlando is.
Oh yeah.
And HOAs on every street in that city that requires them to have a clean home. And they're, $800,000-$900,000, maybe even $1 million homes. So that's a great benefit for a lot of pressure washers, but it's definitely not for me, because where I'm from, we don't really have any HOAs around here that mandate that you must get your, home pressure washed at least once a year or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I know when the previous house we lived in a subdivision, whatever you want to call it, that had an HOA. There were 116 homes, right? So the HOA, your grass couldn't get up but so high, but the HOA in the fees didn't pay a company to cut your grass. And us being in that HOA, they established who like the two people that ran the HOA and all that stuff was. And I was telling Ivy, and this was 2 years ago, I'm like, because we had a guy that lived in the neighborhood, in the subdivision, that mowed grass, had his own landscaping business. I'm like, that dude needs to get the HOA people, because like once a year or something, like if there's an idea and they'll pass it around, and basically all the people that live in that community have to vote. If you get X amount of votes, that's what it's going to happen, and the HOA will go up. I'm like, this dude needs to get a vote to increase the HOA, because the yards were small, man. There wasn't even a quarter acre.
Really?
They were teeny tiny. And I'm like, he could mow these yards for $20 a piece. Like he can afford to do it because there's so many. Um, I'm like, so if they increase the HOA by $40 a month and the guy has to mow your yard every other week, so twice a month, that dude can make all kind. He don't even have to work anywhere else. He can just maintain that subdivision and make enough money.
Oh, I know, dude, and that's why I wish there was areas like that around here. But the that I know of, the closest one to me is at least an hour away.
Yeah, golly.
I could be wrong, but I just, I haven't lived here for 8 years now. So things have changed for me, or for this area, but I feel like I would know if, there were a bunch of HOAs around here.
Yeah, whenever we end up moving back to where we grew up and everything, I'm sure some of those have HOAs, but there's several like pretty wealthy, like 300,000 plus houses. Some of them, one of them, there's probably only 20 homes in the whole thing. Their houses are a lot more expensive because the lots were like 2 and 3 acres in size. But
Yeah.
there's several of them like kind of in that area that people could hit up. Um, yeah, man, that'd be a sweet thing. So if you don't have HOAs, what's your target market? You trying to hit businesses? There are a lot of businesses around there, or
There are a lot of businesses around here. And I've gotten, so the first one I did was literally maybe a week after I established my LLC. And I mean, he's my accountant, but he, heard that I started the business, and he's got a professional building here in town that houses, multiple different professional services companies. And they had, I think it was about 20,000 square foot of concrete that needed clean. And he asked me to do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it for sure. And that right there, it was to date my biggest job. And but now I've put a quote on another one that's about half of that for just concrete. And then cool thing I did last week is I went to the school that I went to, my high school, and I told them, I said, because they wanted me to pressure wash the field house for the football team, and but the athletic club or whatever didn't want to pay for it at the time. So my athletic trainer, that the one that I had in high school, he was like, well, what would you charge for the gymnasium? And I was like, well, I don't know. I just have to measure it off, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, okay, well, what about just the front? There was like a little bit of concrete in the front, and then it's an all brick gym. And it was filthy. Like, it probably hadn't been touched. That gym was built, I want to say, in the early 2000s, and it probably never been pressure washed before. So there was just black organic growth all over it.
yeah, just like running down the brick.
Yep. And in the mortar too. And I told them what I would charge, and they didn't want to pay for it. So what I did was, like, I didn't have any jobs last week. So I said, look, I'll come do, because it's, the beginning of basketball season, and it is my school, or the high school that I went to. So I was like, look, I'll come do it for free. I can use the advertisement and the marketing off of this. So I'll just come do that for free. And that's what I did. And they saw how good of a job I did. So now I think, someone's going to pay for me to do the field house roof. And, that's just allowing me to get my foot in the door for all the high schools, middle schools, and even elementary schools around here, be able to pressure wash them. So I'm kind of going at it balanced, if you will, with it being 50% residential, 50% commercial. But the problem with the commercial around here is no one's ever offered that service. There might have been a handyman that said, yeah, I can do it for you. And it'd be, drinking money on the weekend.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
they
good
have,
old boy. That's what I'm talking about.
but they haven't had a professional company that specializes specifically in pressure washing come and clean their business. So it's just a market that I have to tap into. And I mean, the more I get, the better it's going to be, you know, as far as word of mouth goes. And hopefully one day I can get every business around here. You know, that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, that would be legit, man. I hope I hope it works out that way for you. Um, especially getting started this year, you know, when spring comes around, man, hopefully you just get job after job after job. So,
Yeah. You know, a lot of people, especially your elderly people, they want their places clean and kept up, but they only want to do it one time a year, and they only want to do it in a specific time of the year. And that's generally springtime, you know, right as summer, right before summer begins. That way they have, we'll say 7, possibly 8 months of cleanliness at their house, you know, before all the rain, the mud, potentially snow, all that stuff, and the leaves and acorns drop, you know, so they got all that time. And so I'll have a lot of those, you know, just kind of once a year customers. But what I'm trying to do is offer contracts, kind of like, you know, Terminix or any landscaping company or extermination company does. That way, you know, I'll come clean either once or twice a year, whatever we agree to. And now you're under, say, a year or 2, 3 year contract, so it's guaranteed money each year, and that's what I'm trying to get to. But again, that's going to be a totally new concept for people around here,
oh yeah.
because again, no one's really ever done it before, and I just right now I don't know how people would feel about that. I'm sure a lot of people would be open to it because it's basically I'm doing all the work for them, and all they have to do is, you know, pay me once, maybe twice a year. And like you know, I'll do the scheduling, the reminding, everything. It's basically a hassle-free concept for the customer. But you know, then sometimes like with me, when I had, say, ADT, a bill come up for them, I'm like, dang, I don't want to pay that again, you know, because I didn't feel like I really needed it. And that's how some people might get, you know. But
Yeah, I wouldn't think it'd be a bad thing, man, because I'm trying to think back. I've had a pressure washer for years, you know, just a cheap like $100 one. It's like a Greenworks
yeah.
pressure washer I got at Lowe's or something. But I've had that since probably 2014, and
Hmm.
I've used it a lot. Like that house, you know, you came to our house at Fort Bragg. I probably pressure washed because I had a driveway, a sidewalk that went to the front, and then like a
Yep.
back concrete patio area. And I pressure washed all that at least 3 times while I lived there.
Yep.
Um, just myself. And then here, since we've lived here, we've only lived in this house a year, and I've pressure washed our driveway once already, and I pressure washed our deck.
Yep.
Of course, I wasn't getting super close to it because I didn't want the wood to splinter or any of that, but I wanted to clean it real good because it was green wood when it was built. You know, it's pressure treated lumber, but I
Hmm.
wanted to seal it. And you need to wait like 6, 8 months so all that stuff seeps out of that wood before you do whatever. So it got to that point. I wanted to pressure wash it and clean any dirt and debris that was on it. I say pressure wash it. I pretty much just washed it off
Yeah.
with slight pressure, and then I sealed it afterwards. So we built a detached garage, and when it was first built, I didn't have gutters on it yet.
Hmm.
So it had rained and it was freshly built, so it was just dirt around it. So all that water came off that roof and
Yep.
hit the dirt and splashed all up on the side of it, probably 3 feet up the freaking sidewall, all the way around the garage. Just disgusting. And it happened to me twice before I could it happened to me once. I pressure washed it, cleaned it, put gutters on it. And then it happened a second time because it got super cold and it snowed, and that snow was on there. And as that snow and ice kind of slid, it covered the gutters.
Yeah.
It slid down and just covered the gutter. And it was just, as it got warmer and started to melt, it did the same thing. And I had to pressure wash the garage again. So if you lived here, you would have pressure washed at my house 4 times already.
I wish, what I'd like to be able to do is, maybe one day grow big enough to where I can, have, like, I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but just basically set up shop in multiple different cities, and I think with my veteran status and, military background, I think it would be kind of easy to come around military bases and be able to pressure wash homes and stuff. I don't know if that could happen. I mean, maybe it could, but that's kind of the goal. Like, I don't want to just be stuck in a specific city, or even a county. Like, I'm not saying I'm trying to take over the state of Alabama, but I'd at least like to be able to cover the northern part of Alabama, So
yeah, I mean, that's definitely a business model. And it's kind of like, I don't know what business to compare it to, but when you're trying to franchise or whatnot, and you use your business name and everything, and you found somebody in the nearest city to you, I'd say you'd want to start out close so you could actually get there and do stuff if you needed to within like an hour. But if you found somebody, the way you get them is, in a franchise, in my mind, this is just ignorant Joe Bells with no freaking business training or, being a business owner before, is the trailers that you're talking about, right? So you provide them the thing, they sign some contract saying, hey, I'm willing to do a franchise, and you give them the stuff up front, and then you get a percentage off of each job after that. The percentage is high in the beginning so you can get your money back for the equipment, and then the percentage goes down once the equipment's fully paid for, and they're just giving you 7% or something like that, 10% of every job after that, because they're using your business name and you got them started and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
it's definitely doable.
Yeah, I think it is for sure. And what a lot of potential franchisees have to do, though, they have to sign the contract and everything, but they have to pay a certain amount up front as like a franchise fee. And you have to have, depending on the size of the business, you have to have a certain amount of capital, and you have to provide proof of that. So, like, for example, if I wanted to open up a Hooters,
I
have a minimum of $1 million in capital.
Yeah, well, those are those cost money because you're guaranteed business right off the jump. But you're like, as a small business trying to start a second thing in a different town, you would have to structure it a little bit different.
Sure, that definitely wouldn't work for me. I'm just using that as an example for other businesses.
Oh yeah,
I like what I haven't even thought about what you presented. I mean, that's actually a pretty good idea. I think that could work too.
Yeah, because what's the next town over? Let's say an hour away. That's a decent sized city.
Birmingham.
Town. Okay, so if I lived in Birmingham, right? You presented it to me. I'm like, yeah, man, I want to do my own thing, whatnot. You're given, if you structure it somehow in the contract and in your pitch and brief and all that, to where they're basically running their own business. There's just an extension of your company. They don't really have a boss and stuff. The only requirements they have, one, is just representing your brand to the best of their ability, but two, making the payments and paying you for your, you already having a business established and having a name and a reputation that they don't have to build up on, right? So it'd have to be several years down the line. We're talking a minimum of 3, if not 5. It'd have to be several years down the line to where you already have a brand established, to where I'm just like, oh shit, he's, you know, Alex Held's going to freaking allow me to sign as a franchisee and lend me the equipment and like a payment model where I have to pay back. And you don't have to like pay it per job. You can say, hey, look, here's the jobs that you should be able to get on average based on whatever. And then you just charge them like a monthly fee, just like you would if you sold them a vehicle.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here it is in the contract. You pay me $500 a month, $600 a month, whatever it is to pay this thing. And then 7 or 10% of the job revenue also goes to the brand, the business.
Yeah.
And that's how we use it to grow and all that. And it would have to be structured that way, because me getting started out, I'm like, okay, there's zero like upfront cost. All I need to have is a vehicle to pull this trailer or a truck to put your skid thing in, whichever one's cheaper. And then you're providing that to me. And now I just have a contract, just like you would with ADT or any other company. And then now I just pay you. And that's a way for, it's an upfront cost for you.
Yeah.
And you have to find the right person, and you got to put those financials up front. But then it's an easy way for them to get started, and it's a long-term investment and revenue stream for you and for the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, another thing that I've been all my life, I've known I've wanted to own a business, and had no idea what it was, you know, and pressure washing just kind of, I did it, you know, I did surface cleaning when I was a manager at a car wash before I joined the military. And I really enjoyed doing that. And back then I was like, man, we should probably do this around other businesses around here, you know, and I just never acted on it. And it's just funny. We'll say 2012, like 9 years later, here I am doing it, you know, but I've also wanted to look at opening an indoor shooting range around here. And, you know, it's just, I got to get the right people involved and on board before that could even be a possibility. And I've got to, you know, have a huge investment into it. But
yeah, I looked into it.
I just look back around like at Bragg. I can think of at least 2 right now, indoor shooting ranges within 15-minute drive of one another, you know, but it just seemed like there was one on almost every street, especially Yak. And it felt like there was at least 2 or 3, you know, that one there in Spring Lake. I'm sure there might've been one in Hope Mills. And, you know, although there's not a military base, there is Fort McClellan about 40 minutes from me, actually. But it's, you know, not a full-time active duty base any longer like it used to be. I don't know if you know this, but the MPs used to have their AIT at Fort McClellan. That's where it used to be before it went to Fort Leonard Wood. I believe that was back when Obama, I think, was closing down all the bases, or not all of them, but doing a base close down, and they closed down Fort McClellan. So there is still an organization there, and they have full-time soldiers there, but it's the National Guard Ram base. So there's not really that Fort Bragg military presence really near me to be able to justify multiple gun ranges. But the way that I think this would work is you have to do contracts with police departments and say, you know, you give me X amount of dollars every year, and your entire department has unlimited range access. And, you know, if you can get 8 to 12 police departments on board, that's guaranteed money for however long, you know, the terms that you agree to for the contract, and potentially even lifetime money, you know, if all goes well on the business side and you keep everybody happy, and they can continually, you know, improve your range, you know, whether it be the layout, design, the equipment that you have for them, whatever. But that would be I think the only way it works around here. And then, you know, so if that right there's, you know, set in stone concrete, we're good to go. Now you can say, okay, I'm going to have a range specifically for law enforcement only. And that's going to be like what third group had. I forget what they called the indoor shoot house right there by group headquarters. That
Yeah,
huge building.
it's a range number. I know here at Campbell, it's a range 70 is fifth groups.
Okay. All right. Well, so it's basically like that. It's all open concept. And that allows for them to bring in vehicles, do different scenarios, etc. So you have that for law enforcement only, and then you have a 10-lane range for the public. And you structure it to where you can, do memberships. You can do a membership plan, and memberships or members get certain incentives, basically, or so like discounts. If you did like a clubhouse or something for members only, like a lounge, limit or unrestricted access to that, priority of which lane to choose. Like there's so many things you can do with the public to make them feel like, they're kind of family, and like that's a place that they want to spend their free time, but money too, not just come in there to hang out, but come in there to shoot and just get the full experience, and then with your gun shop, basically you have just kind of whatever everyone, whatever brand of pistol or rifle, shotgun, whatever that people kind of lean more towards. You have multiple guns within that brand, and you can let them rent those guns to shoot. So it's basically a try it before you buy it type thing. And then, but the kicker is you can only use the ammo that I have here for sale in my store for my guns that you're renting, but they can bring their own ammo in to shoot their own personal weapons.
Yeah, I
And
think that's if I remember correctly, the range you're talking about in Spring Lake, that was their model. They had gun rentals, but you had to purchase with the gun rental. You had to purchase one box, at least one box of their ammo, and that's how they made a double. Got money off of you twice.
And you had to buy their targets too.
Yeah, that was it. Yep, targets and ammo.
Yep, and then they also sold iPro and EarPro too. If you forget to bring some, and I know that's me, because at almost every range I ever have been to, I feel like I forgot my my good hearing protection, and I'd have to use the little styrofoam things that the medics hand out.
Dude, I remember, speaking of ranges, I remember one range, flat range, that we went to when Master Sergeant Smith was over the MID.
Yes,
during the summer, and it was so hot. I thought we were cramping up trying to get in the prone and kneeling positions. I was like, dude, we're gonna have a heat casualty out here. The daggum water things that they brought ran out, and there was no water left. I was like, bro.
Yeah. I will never forget that day because we stayed out there until the sun went down. We were up there when the sun came up and when it came down. And I think it was in mid-July too.
Yeah,
and
we were severely sunburnt and dehydrated. It was terrible.
Yeah, I went to me and Donahoe went to a range with one of the ODAs in mid-July, and dude, by the end of it, like I couldn't even raise my M4 up to shoot without cramping real bad in the big elbows. And I drank so much pickle juice and Pedialyte and everything when I got home, but like that didn't help. I even drank Gatorade, and I didn't get an IV while I was there. I almost did. They were about to give me an IV, but it was still so bad, dude. It didn't matter what I put in my body. I was so dehydrated. I hated that so much.
Yeah, I had never. I'm trying to remember the first sergeant's name. Was it first sergeant Allison?
Yeah, it was Allison. Yeah.
Yeah. So, dude, were you there that day we had to do that 12-mile ruck with first sergeant Allison?
Yes, and everyone, like only 4 people passed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro, I had never cramped up so bad in my entire life. That day, I remember getting back to the office and Aaron, Walls was like, "Oh, y'all do whatever and come, about working." I was like, "Dude, I'm going home." Like, I'm not working shit. My legs are effed up, man. And I went home and I tried to lay down in the bed because we had got there at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was trying to lay in the bed and my legs had hurt so bad from one, being on them and going 12 miles on that freaking terrain that he picked. And then two,
Yep.
just getting cramped up. So I was laying in bed. I had like restless leg syndrome. I was just moving my legs back and forth because they were hurting. And I called every massage place the closest to my house. And the first person that could take me, I went over there and had a massage my legs.
Yeah.
God.
I used to hate rucking the power lines, doing those ruck runs like in the sand, dude. That was miserable. And then running Stabo Loop all the time. I hated that because of that huge hill right there on Plank that goes out to Chicken. I hated that. I hated it. But it was fun, I guess. All that stuff was fun.
I think it was good because we had a good group of guys. I think if we would have had different people that were just, how some people are in the service, man. If we just had a bunch of bad dudes with a couple of good dudes, I think it would have been miserable.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it was pretty miserable with Aaron, but
yeah.
God, when that guy left, and the terrible thing was, him and I got there at the same time, and we left about the same time. And I was just thinking, like, God, why couldn't he not have left at least a year prior?
Yeah.
Or hell, even 6 months. I'd have taken that. But he was a character, dude. A character.
Your boy Puccio's NCOIC here now.
Yeah, dude, he was trying for about at least a year and a half to get me to come down there. And I couldn't do it. I wanted to so bad, dude, but I couldn't do it. And
dude, what is this guy's name? He popped up. I hadn't seen him in a long time. He was here with me at fifth group, and he popped up as like a suggested friend. And it said that we had two mutual friends, and one of them was you. Tall, lanky, like kind of thuggish white dude.
I know exactly who you're talking about. I can't think of his name, but he's in the Deuce.
Yeah.
He went to 2nd Brigade. God, dude, I went to Jahatsi with him, and then I went. It was him, and then one of y'all's humaners that ended up coming to division headquarters.
Yep.
And both of them did it. I remember we were in, at Huachuca in that class, and both of them was talking crap about the 82nd, how they never wanted to go there, blah blah blah. And that the white guy you was talking about, he was like, "Nah, I'll get out or whatever before I ever step foot over there."
Yeah.
And then I ended up seeing that 35 Mike at one of our
black dude, right?
Yeah. At one of field exercises, and he was coming around to just do spot checks on the human teams. And I was like, "Hey man, what's up? You remember me, blah blah blah." And I asked about the other guy, the white guy, and he's like, "Man, he's over at 2nd Brigade and he loves it over. He's drank the Kool-Aid." And I'm like, "Oh God." I can only imagine how because that dude was a little cocky anyways.
It was weird, man. Like, he was really good at briefing. He knew how to turn it on and turn it off, but he was like real thuggish, bro. And he would be like, bro, man, bro, and bro this and bro that. And he would I'm like, you just said bro and man like 30 times in 2 minutes.
Dude, he did that the time we was in class, like even to the instructors. And I'm just thinking, like, I wasn't the most professional when it came to my mouth, in the military, but in a setting like that, like, I know when to turn it on and turn it off, And that dude just didn't. He didn't have no filter. He said whatever.
Literally the only time, like, I don't know how he never said those words when he would brief like the battalion commander. But when he would brief the battalion commander, it was like he was a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hey, sometimes I wish I could have done stuff like that, just, I don't, he's one of those that likes to talk. And I mean, I do too, depending on what it's about, but he liked to talk regardless.
Mm-hmm.
He just wanted people to hear him. And I mean, that's sometimes a good, quality to have. Sometimes it's poor, especially when you can't read, people's social cues when they're trying to walk away from you and you still talk to them, And sometimes I catch myself doing that. People start getting real short with me. And then I keep talking, just because I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yeah.
And then I feel bad about it because I'm like, dang, they were totally trying to get me to shut up, and I just completely ignored it, But now they were, both real good dudes though. And then a guy that I went to ALC with him, Villapando. I think you know him.
What's his name?
He was Villapando.
It definitely sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I met him. So I mean, that was 3 fifth group guys that I got to meet, and they were all decent dudes. Had a good time with them in ALC and the other class.
Yeah,
I kind of
fifth group, man. Fifth group was legit. I ain't even gonna lie. Fifth group was legit. I mean, like I said, dude, dang, this thing mess up. The focus off on this camera.
Yeah, a little bit.
Bro.
I think you're good now.
Yeah. Fifth group, I mean, third group was legit too, man. Like I said, we had a couple of good guys. You and Donahoe were legit. When we had Mike Cordova there, he was legit. Puccio was good. Who else? I'm trying to think. We had a couple of other, like, obviously in different offices, because we had Joe Sexton and a handful of other guys, and then it was just different. Even though we were in a group, we constantly were doing things to build camaraderie, and then we were going to the range and we were doing these exercises at events. But fifth group was really good too, but I only went to the range like twice.
Really?
And then even being here in the regiment, I've done one range in almost 3 years.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but the kind of the way I see it is, I don't really understand why you didn't go to many ranges in fifth group, but with the regiment, I would say that's not really. I don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like they don't necessarily care about that as much because they care about y'all, being more technical experts than tactical.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Whereas, with the ODAs in third group, I don't know about fifth group, but they didn't really give a crap if you were good at your job or not, because they were going to find you work regardless. They cared if you were physically fit and if you could shoot a weapon without shooting them,
Yep. But, I don't know. I guess every unit has its pros and cons, and and even at third group, like I said, man, it had its ups and downs based on who our command team was.
Yep. Yep.
On that first deployment wasn't the greatest. And I remember we came back, that whole command team got relieved.
Yep.
And then once we got a whole new command team, and it was like we had first sergeant plants and shit, like my morale was mega high. So
I know he was definitely one for the troops. Like, I feel like he's one of a few of the Green Berets that actually cared about support people.
Oh yeah.
Because not many of them did. They didn't care for you at all. They just wanted you to do their job, and that was it.
Yeah, because he wasn't in my perspective, he wasn't he, like a lot of the other ones, which, shouldn't be, but some Green Berets came in as like, God, this thing is ridiculous. Holy crap, bro. I need to quit moving, I guess. This thing will not focus, bro.
I guess it's time for an upgrade then, isn't
Hey, I just got this thing.
it?
Bro, what the heck, dog?
Hey, you can't expect great quality when you buy from Walmart.
I know. I did get this thing from Walmart, though.
No, I'm just kidding.
Hold on a second. Let me. It's going to change totally different angles. So that's my computer. There we go.
Yep.
But he was in the army, and he believes in the army, and he wanted good soldiers for the army as a whole. It wasn't about just this one area, because I think too many people get caught up in that. It's like, oh, we need them to be this and that, and try to, no, those people aren't going to stay there forever, man.
Yeah.
They're going to go all across the service. You're going to get dudes from all across the service coming here. You need to make sure that this person, you build them up so you retain good talent in the army. And that's all he cared about.
Yeah. And I think that stems from, he was in the regular army for I want to say at least 8 years, maybe. I could be wrong, but
yeah.
Or he, went to selection and stuff. So he understands the regular army, where most of them don't, because they come straight in and go through selection and all that stuff. And that's all they know.
Yeah.
But I think the ones that are appreciative of the support personnel are the ones who had that regular army experience, like the 82nd and the 101st and some of those other units out there.
Yeah, it was just a unique, I don't know, man. Well, I think we were just there at the right time, because like I said, even within the MID, there was a couple people, regardless we were intel and we were support, there was a couple of dudes that they would go to war freaking soldiers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'd put them up with some of the best of them. And but I can't say that for other places I've been.
No, dude, let me tell you, a regular army Mako is like,
dude, that's where I came from. When you came to group, I'd already been there. I don't know. I ain't even been there a year yet. I've probably been there 6 months, but I just came from the 82nd from the Miko.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's just a bread house of different people, man. Like, and they were all good people for the most part, and I miss almost every single one of them that I had in my platoon. But there were some, oh boy, like they needed tough love, man. Almost every single one of them needed tough love, because they didn't get it growing up. They weren't brought up like you and I were, and that required me to get on them a lot, a whole lot, more than I wanted to. I hated it. I hated being that guy that came into work screaming and yelling and cussing every single day. But I had to. I had no other choice. It was either they were going to run all over me because I wasn't going to discipline them, or I was going to discipline them, and they were going to get right. But it was hard. That's one thing. It challenged me, because it was hard, because there were some people I could, get in their face and chew them out for a little bit, and then they'd be like, all right, and it'd be completely over with. Wouldn't even think about it again.
Yeah.
But then there were some that just couldn't take it, and one in particular, I think I told you about it, but she tried to file a kind of like an EO complaint, not really like a formal or informal, but, but she just went to my first sergeant and said that I was sexist. And it's because and she was an NCO, and I had to treat her worse than I did some of the privates, and that's what I got out of it. And that was just, one person, but I'm sure if the opportunity arose, a couple would have probably done the same thing. I don't know. I would hope not, but it just, what we had a bunch of personalities that clicked.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so good, because we were all on the same page when it came to work-life balance, but we all had this generally the same interest as well. So we could sit there and, talk all day long and it not have to always be about work. And that's what was so good about the MID and third group. And nobody, I'd say some people were only there for themselves, but generally speaking, everybody had each other's back for the most part. And I found over in the 82nd, I don't know what it is about that place, man, but it's toxic. It just feels like that whole organization. And I love the 82nd. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm very grateful that I spent, about 3 years there. And the 82nd, that's the organization that showed me how to be an NCO. And but it just like that entire environment, it just felt toxic kind of for the most part. And everything was so stressful, even when it didn't have to be,
Yeah.
and then everything was real political too. And it was a bad place to be. And I heard it used to not be like that. It just over time, places and people change out, and I don't know. It was a good experience, but it was definitely tough. I'd say that for sure. That's the toughest thing I've had to deal with, I think.
Yeah. And
Especially in the
like you said about the regiment, I mean, here, they, for the most part, do more care about your skills, but
Yeah.
it's a bad thing because they just completely put off everything else.
Yeah.
So, just like when we were in group, they used to call people group babies, right?
Yeah.
Well, here they call them sore babies. And they don't know how to, like you said, man, they don't know how to be an NCO. They
Yeah.
just don't. And as soon as you call them out on not being able to do this, that, and the third, their butt hurt right off the bat. And it just starts conflict when there shouldn't be conflicts. Like, no, hey, this is what you did wrong. You need to correct it. Take action, correct it. That's it. Like you said, man, we had a good group. Why is this thing, bro? This is a piece of garbage. Let me try to fix it again. Stupid freaking. It should be good because it was a highly rated freaking thing, man. But we had a good group of people, and like you said, we had a lot of and I don't know, this is another thing, dude. I don't even know. I don't want to say it's like Democrat and Republican or right and left, but I don't even know. I feel like there's a lot more left Democratic type soldiers than there was like when you and I were at group together at Bragg. Dude, I don't remember anybody talking about the opposite of what, we were diehard freaking red, white, and blue, military service, all this stuff. And then at some point, it just switched, man. And like over the last 2 or 3 years, I've had to watch what I do and say at work because it offends other people. And I'm like, bro, you should be supportive of this. Like, there were people that didn't like Donald Trump as president. I'm like, he was doing all kinds of stuff to help the military. You're a part of the military. Like,
well, I think what that boils down to, and like, I will say there are, okay, we'll take, for example, like shark related stuff, like that's something that I took real seriously. And I had to bar an NCO actually for making sexual jokes in the workplace because I told him twice on the same day not to do it again. And the very next day he did it. So, I mean, it was his fault. He left me no choice, and I don't feel an out sorry for what I chose to do. But it's more about knowing who your audience is, kind of, I'm not saying every bit of, just, I don't want to call it locker room talk because like that's not professional at all, but like, just cussing and saying, normal things. It's just, you got to know who your audience is, and you can't, like, you and I can joke around and I'm not going to get offended. You're not going to get offended.
Yeah.
You and I are talking like that around, a group of female soldiers. One of them's probably going to get offended, and I 100% support that. And their right to basically speak up and say, hey, no, you're not supposed to do that, because that's what the Army tells us. But a lot of people I feel that they just are ignorant to what's going on in the world. So like when you talk about, soldiers didn't like the president, well, that's fine. They have the right to, but I feel like a lot of the younger generation was doing it because that was the popular thing to do, not because they were educated on the pros and cons of Donald Trump versus, whoever it may have been. It was just, they wanted to basically be a follower and fall into society and how society thinks. And I think America as a whole, and even especially the Army, we've gotten soft, like real soft. And that into, people getting so easily offended. Like the way I see it, and, people, like if 1,000 people watch this video, they're probably, half of them probably disagree with what I'm about to say. But like, I used to tell soldiers all the time, if you think me saying the F word or calling you a dumbass or whatever is bad, like, go to war and tell me if you think anyone in Afghanistan gives a crap about your feelings.
I know.
That's what I'm trying to prepare them for.
Yeah.
Because, we're intel guys, and we generally stick behind a desk and a computer in, a decent area. And we're not, exposed to all the hostile things going on outside the wire, but there are still IDF threats,
Yeah.
They're at, where me and you were back in 2019 at the same place. We had 6 rounds once a month. It's still dangerous. There's still a war going on out there. And these kids nowadays, I don't think they understand that. Like, when I got to Helmand Province, I specifically remember telling my OIC at the time, I said, I think a lot of these young lieutenants feel like they're on vacation and not in a war zone. And that's the honest to God's truth, because they were all like, our battle captain, dude, it used to make me so mad, because after we left Helmand, we went to Logar, and I was the battle NCO for the last 3 months. But the biggest difference, as you know, is like Logar was called, where we were in Logar was called Rocket City, because they had taken about 100 and some odd rounds in a couple months.
Yeah.
Whereas where we were in Helmand, there wasn't nothing hardly going on, so it was very stressful. But this one battle captain, and he was a lieutenant, where I'd be looking at him while we have patrols outside the wire and dismounts, outside the wire, and he'd be on his phone playing video games and stuff and not paying a lick of attention. Like, it got so bad to where the 3 and the squadron commander would call me and ask for updates and not him, and it killed me. And, because like, that's just the younger generation. That's what, that's why it's hard being a leader in the Army now, is because this younger generation was brought up a completely different way than we were, and that's what was challenging for me the most, was trying to tailor my leadership style to ultimately benefit that soldier and help them grow,
Yeah.
But it's just when you can't, compare apples to apples to them and make it make sense in your, how you were brought up, then they're never going to get it, and, going back to all those lieutenants and stuff, man, it just, in my opinion, what the Army is producing nowadays is not quality leadership potential out of future, captains, company commanders, battalion commanders, to even staff sergeants and above. Because especially with enlisted now, if a soldier's in their primary zone, they have to go to a board. Like, no, why should they? Like, just because you hit a certain time in grade and whatnot, and time in service, that doesn't mean you automatically qualify, or it shouldn't mean.
I know, because, and like, to your point, we can only speak to the Army because that's the branch that you and I are in. Is the Army has implemented so many programs and policies that adhere to those type of soldiers. So it's like, what's the incentive to do X, Y, or Z? What's the yield that they get from it? Because they can just show up, be in the right place, right time, right uniform, and get, go to a promotion board because it's automatic, then they don't have to put any effort into it.
Yeah.
But no, when individuals have to see potential in you and say, yes, we think you're the next leader of the Army, and go, then then there's output. There's things that they have to do. And I hate to say it, man, but you're right. And I don't want to say that infantry first, because there are infantry people that are reclassed or just other, combat arms that are like, you've ran into those soldiers before, like, oh, I'm infantry first, and they're just trying to be cool.
Yeah.
But to a certain just as well as I do, the Army, there's so many things that you're required to do, annual training, meetings, just God knows what, that just take up so much of your time that you can't do what matters. And what matters is doing the basic soldier skills and going to the range. Because if somebody watches this that don't know anything about the service, to me, people that are oblivious to the military look at somebody that's in the service and like, oh, well, this person has this type of training and whatnot. They might think that they can shoot, move, and communicate with the best of them, which is not the case.
Yeah.
So to me, all these things have been put into place for whatever reason, protection measures, and do this and do that. And now those soldiers aren't necessarily soldiers anymore, because now they're going to sharp training and EO training and this training and sitting in this meeting, and then they're basically regulations are changed where you can't do this and say that to them and blah blah blah, and all these things take away from just being a soldier. One of the things that I actually enjoyed and I hated when I left was basic training, because basic training was the fundamentals of being a soldier.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed basic training. Depending on who you talk to, they hated it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it because, hey, it was being a soldier, that was it. All I needed to do was do soldier shit. And that was easy to do, but it gets lost in the service now. Once you leave basic, and a lot of it's been taken out of basic. And once those soldiers leave, like we're saying, all the things that take them away, it's just a job now. It's just a job.
And especially like for me, and I'll be the first to admit it, and I did to a bunch of my soldiers. Like I'll tell them straight up, like, look, my first duty station was 3rd Group, straight out of AIT. We did zero Army stuff, zero, besides a couple motor pool Mondays that I can remember. But anything else we did not do. So it was difficult for me to make that transition to the regular Army, because that's all we did was regular Army. Motor pool Monday every single Monday.
Yeah.
And which, it gets repetitive, and it gets to a point where you're wasting time because the maintenance platoon's so behind on the commanders, truck or whatever it may be, or the parts aren't, haven't been ordered yet, or they haven't shipped, so on and so forth. But that was one thing, getting back to like doing the basics and being experts at the basics. I actually, when I was in 573 Cav in 3rd Brigade, my senior rater was the Squadron XO. And he asked me, he said, we were about to leave from Afghanistan, and we were doing a senior rater counseling. And he asked me, he said, if there's one thing that the squadron can improve on, what do you think it would be? And I told him straight up, I said, sir, we got to get back to the basics. I said, I look around the squadron and, and myself included, I said, we as a whole focus on maintenance all the time, but nobody knows how to do that maintenance. And we're always behind, or just people showing up on time, shave before PT formation, the little things. And I said this so much that I hated hearing myself say it, but I used to tell my platoon, I was like, if we can't do the little things correctly, then that's all we're going to be focused on. And we're not going to be able to accomplish what we actually have to get accomplished. And that's so true, because, man, it seemed like at least 3 times a week I was yelling at somebody for not shaving before PT formation, or not wearing the proper uniform for PT formation, or I don't know. There was multiple things, showing up late, oversleeping, whatever. And I told him, I said, look, me as your platoon sergeant, the way it should work is I shouldn't talk to E4 and below at all. If you're talking to me, it's probably not good,
Yep.
And I should be talking to the squad leaders and team leaders only, and let them handle it. But it got so bad, I couldn't even do that. So I had to take time out of my day every day, regardless of what I had going on, to basically be a platoon sergeant, squad leader, and team leader all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A part of that is my fault, because I allowed that to happen by not disciplining the squad leaders and team leaders more than I should have. I kind of treated them a little bit different because they were NCOs, and I didn't want to ruin the, I guess, work relationship I had with the people that, I needed. Like, I needed their help, so I didn't want to be on them all the time, because then I knew it's either they're going to fix it or they're not going to fix it. And now they're not going to come to work and actually work every day like I need them to.
Yep. Yeah, it's a weird, I found myself in that situation several times, because like you said, the relationship should be different, because they're NCOs, you count on them.
Mm-hmm.
At that level, you're like, hey, I trust you to do what is right and needs to be done. And when they don't, man, to me, it was aggravating.
Yeah.
And
even though there'd be times, man, I'd sit there and I'd show them step by step how to do something, and I would give classes on it, or I would let someone else give classes on it that I knew how to do. Like, okay, dispatching vehicles, for example. It felt like every week we couldn't properly fill out the 5988s, even though every week we had talked about it and we discussed how to do it. And I had one of my soldiers, he was a specialist when I left, but he was a PFC out there showing almost the entire platoon how to, PMCS a truck and how to fill out the 5988s correctly. And I sat there and I told him, I said, look, guys, if y'all don't start bringing a notepad and pen, I only let it happen once before I just blew up on them. But I was like, this is why y'all bring something to write with and write on. That way you know how to do it. And now we're not worried about the 5988s being messed up and having to refix them every single afternoon once, 1600 hits. Like, if y'all mess up, if y'all can't do these things right, then yeah, we're going to stay late. But if you can come in, do what you got to do, get it done the right way the first time, then sometimes I'd let them off by 1500 or even earlier. could. I was all about getting them out of there and not wasting their time, but those kids just didn't want to learn. It was just like they were there to collect a paycheck and that was it, you know?
Yeah. I do remember like the one thing that I hated going back to Motor Pool Mondays, the one thing I hated as for us as Intel, like we only use those vehicles when we went to the field and stuff. So I'm like, when they would be like, oh, do your PMCS on the vehicle and stuff. I'm like, this vehicle hadn't moved from last Monday, And they're like, oh, well, you need to check it for like a grade 3 and a grade 4 leak. And, I'm like, I'm like, it's parked on concrete. There's no oil on the ground. So I guarantee you the oil level is the same,
That's what I'm saying.
I got to where I checked those same two vehicles every single week where I wouldn't even check them. I would just open the hood, lift the hood up, get inside it, crank it, and I would just sit in there on my phone for like 10 minutes and then turn it off, close it all, lock it up back up and be like, vehicle's good. Like what are we doing here? I just checked it. Like,
dude, it got to the point. See, like I wish we could have done something like that because I'd have let them as long as I knew that they were checking it and things were getting annotated correctly. I'd have been fine with that. But it got to the point where I was making them PMCS their truck. It would be the driver and the TC because we had about 45 people in the platoon and we had six trucks, I think, something like that. Maybe 5 and 1 LMTV. We end up getting 2 LMTVs. But anyways, the driver and TC would sit out there with their TM for that truck specifically, and they would go down the checklist. And that's what I had to do to get them to do it properly, and it's a shame that it had to come to that point. I know technically that's the right way to do it, but like, we ain't got time. We ain't always got time to do it step by step. Sometimes all we got time to do is go in, open doors, open the hood, crank it. All right, it's running. Let's go.
Well, and that goes back to if the Army wouldn't do all this other stuff.
Yes.
If Motor Pool Mondays is what the Army wants to do, then you got time to do it.
Yep.
But no, we got to get out of here because we have to go do something that is just ridiculous, and that's what my time was consisted of when I was in a MICO. Just mind-numbing stuff for no reason, no apparent reason. Hey, dude, do this class, do that class. We're going to sit here and have training over something that doesn't even matter. And it just one thing after another, after another, after another. And I'm like, look, man, I'm an Intel guy and I haven't done Intel in 3 months.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Like my account's locked out right now because you got me in the motor pool for 3 straight.
Dude, it was the worst, man. But
that and go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know it's probably getting dinner time there, man. So I don't want to keep you from, thawing stuff out or getting your dinner together or whatever's going on.
You're good. I got a couple more minutes if you got them.
Yeah, I mean, I got a few more minutes so we can try to wrap it up. Like I said, I just know it's getting about that time. So. Yeah,
well, I appreciate you letting me do this, man. To be honest,
I ain't letting you do nothing, man. You're doing it on your own free will. I appreciate you.
Well, I was a little nervous about it because I've never done anything like this, and I see like a lot of pressure washers. They'll get on their Facebook page and go live all the time, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to do like speaking in front of people and all that. Even though my job in the Army was to brief and speak in front of people, I was like, man, there ain't really no point in that. You ain't got to do all that. But I think it's good, depending on your target, market or whatever you're talking about, whatever topics it may be. I think it's good to actually get out there. And this is one way that, people could get to know me a little bit, just based off this video, that way it's impossible for me to meet every single person in this county. It's just never going to happen. But, say that this video goes, hits the numbers and there's like 1,000 people that watch it, then all right, cool. Now people know me a little bit. They know, a little bit of my background and And now hopefully they feel like, they can trust me a little bit to come do work at their house, and that's what I'm kind of getting to. Because in the military, I got to a point where my mental health, I was just in a bad spot. And I got to where I didn't really care about nobody else. Honestly, I like, other than myself, I really didn't care about too many people, and I hated feeling like that. And I finally went to behavioral health and sat down and talked with somebody. I think, twice, 2 or 3 times, something like that. But it was good to finally just get everything off my chest and whatnot. But, going back to me not really caring about nobody, is this business has helped me get back to what I was before that, rough patch that I went through. And I've got that like genuine care for everyone that I go pressure wash for, or even if they don't, want me to pressure wash, like I'm still going to go there. I'm still going to treat them the same as a human being. And I'm going to try and build a relationship with everyone that I talk to. And I think that's very important, because a lot of people nowadays, I feel like they, maybe sit behind their computer and they don't have that one-on-one experience with their potential client or customer, or whatever it may be, or whoever it may be. And that's just, I think that's more old school, kind of the way I'm going about it. But I just feel that one-on-one, face-to-face, or even Skype or Zoom like this, I think that's the best thing as a business owner to do. Just especially with me, I haven't, hang on, I'm sorry. I haven't lived in this area for 8 years now. I mean, I still know a lot of people, but there's also a lot of people that I don't know, so just getting out, doing whatever I can to build that rapport within the community, do good work, and just continue trying to build the business and see where it goes from there. Like I said, I really hope that shooting range plan I've got works out. I know one guy owns a gun store here in town, and I think for the past like 3 years he's tried, but hasn't been successful because the community didn't want it or something along those lines. But in all honesty, I think it's because of the individual more than it is the community not wanting an indoor shooting range.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't really know him too well. I know him a little bit, and I'm not saying anything bad about him, but he does have an arrogant, demeanor about him. And I think that kind of steers people away from him. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but it's just my opinion. And I think one thing that might help me out is having a military background, and then just getting in good with all the police departments and making it happen. If I can get the police departments on board, then the people will come. I don't have any doubts about that. But to wrap up, man, again, I appreciate you letting me do this, and I miss all the times we had in the military for sure. Sometimes I kind of wish I was still doing it, but I told my wife the other day, I was like, man, I haven't worked besides, doing pressure washing. I've kind of had a vacation for about 6 months now, and it's felt great. It's felt great.
Yeah.
I deserved it. I didn't do 20 plus years like a lot of people do, and my hat's off to them, but I did my time, and I'm in the National Guard, and really just for the benefits, the insurance and all that good stuff, and to keep my clearance and whatnot. But I wouldn't mind going back on active duty in the National Guard, or if an AGR position became available, as something I would definitely consider, because I don't know, I miss the military a little bit in the sense of the structure, the potential people that you meet, the lifelong friends that you may meet as well, that if it wasn't for the Army, you would have never met that individual.
I know.
So.
Yeah, the Army, I know we've said a couple things about it, but the Army the Army as a whole has a lot of great things going on.
Yeah.
But like we said, I think it's a generational thing. It's the
Mhm.
programs and policies that the Army has put into place. There's a bunch of factors that kind of take away what is good about the
Yeah.
service. And if the service can get back to what's good about it, and you know, back to like you said you had a point to where you didn't really care about other people. I had a spurt like that in the workplace, and it was because of situations that we talked about. It's like when I constantly have to do this and that and whatever, like I'm looking in a mirror, I'm talking to myself, like nobody else is hearing me. So why
Yep.
even waste my time and try to pour time and effort into you when I'm not getting anything in return? Because what you ultimately want, and I've had quite a few of them, is a good soldier that you can tell them something and they just do it. And the
Hmm.
things that you try to teach them and show them and groom them and let them grow, and you get that back from them, because I don't have to tell you to do this now and watch out for you and look over your shoulder like
Yep.
that's what you want to put your money in, because you get a dividend return. But when you have, I had just had bad soldiers. And some people might look at it as, hey, you only have bad soldiers if you have bad NCOs. Somebody might think that or look at it that way.
Yeah.
Uh, but nobody that's been an NCO in the service can tell me that they haven't had a soldier that, it's like the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And
Yep.
when you have a multiple of those at the same time, it's draining
Yep.
on an NCO. And I was in that same spot, man. So I understand.
Oh yeah, dude. That's what wore me. And we stayed at work I was working stateside sometimes 14, 15 hours a day, every single day. I'm like, for what? Like, what do we got going on that's so important that I have to be here for 3/4 of a day? Like that is mind boggling to me. Like I understand in Afghanistan, yeah, you're working 12-hour shifts. Sometimes you're working 15, 16, but that's all you got to do over there,
Yep.
is work out, eat, sleep, and repeat. But there's an actual mission. But when you're stateside and garrison, like, yeah, you've got your training requirements, field exercises, and all that you got to get ready for. But there should never be a time where people are staying there 15 hours, 16 hours a day. And there was one time I was I was the shoot NCO, and I was I was at work for 39 straight hours and got 1 hour of sleep within those 39 hours, and then was expected to drive home after.
I was about to say,
Like,
when I
and
was
I
in the MICO, the way they did it there is, their staff duty was from 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. the next day. Well, they expected you to be at PT in the morning. I'm like, you want me to be here at
Nope.
6 a.m., do PT, then be on shift doing 9 to 9, and like you said, drive home. I'm supposed to be up 27, 28 hours. Like, what's wrong with you? So one thing that the regiment does, which is a good thing, is they don't have staff duty doesn't start until 1500.
Yeah, that's good.
Because the staff duty phone is by the command team's assistant. So if
Yeah,
somebody calls that staff duty phone, they can get to the phone. But most of the stuff don't happen during the daytime. Everybody's at work
yeah,
and in the office.
yeah,
So the way their staff duty is set up, it's not till 1500, and then it goes till 09 the next morning, and then
man, I wish I'd have thought of that because I'd have tried my hardest to implement that because staff duty is the biggest waste of time, in my opinion. It really is. Like you don't have to have someone there 24 straight hours sitting at a desk miserable, waiting on a phone call or something to pop off. That's ridiculous to me. But yeah, thankfully I had a good first sergeant at the time, and my dad was actually in town at the time too. So he was like, either I'm following you home or your dad's going to. Which one? So I mean, he was taking care of me, but I complained, dude. I've never complained like that in my life. But I told my company commander, I told him all, I was like, that Should never happen. Like, we didn't have trans out there. Like, so we were supposed to all be expected to drive our POVs out to the drop zone. And you know as well as I do at Fort Bragg, no POVs are allowed at most of them.
Yeah.
You know, there's some designated parking areas, but, you know, not for a 60-person shoot detail. You know, so we didn't have trends out there. We didn't have food planned. We didn't have water planned. And I got the task last minute. So, of course, I didn't have time to plan all that stuff. It should have been done prior to. But it was the biggest waste of time that I've ever had to deal with, and the biggest headache for sure. But I think with my, you know, recommendations on how to improve that system, I hope that will never happen again to somebody, but you never know.
Yep. Because without continuous on anymore, but that's another, you hope, but you don't know, because those positions are only held for 1 year.
Yep.
And then if you can do everything and try to pass it off to somebody else, but if that person doesn't care, then it just never keeps going. And that's another thing that the Army or the military as a whole needs to change. Like, you shouldn't have to swap out dudes all the time and PCS here and get this broadening like breadth of knowledge, because anybody that's at one place, you can't understand an organization and how it functions in 2 to 3 years.
No.
By the time you get it and understand it and can like continue on, that's when you're ready. It's time to go. And then somebody else is coming in trying to figure it out. And it's just a revolving, you know, mouse wheel. So,
yeah.
But yeah, exactly, man, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for getting on here. Hopefully we'll do it again. You know, I wish you the best, man.
Yeah, you do, dude, for sure.
You know, we work together, and we different ranks, different jobs, but we respected one another at work, and we still respect one another. That's why we're talking today. So I appreciate it. You know, always stay in touch. My phone's always on, so you can call me about anything, anytime.
Yeah, dude. Same goes to you for sure.
And tell Allison I said hey.
I will. Yeah, tell Ivy I said hello as well.
Yeah, man, I will.
All right, y'all have a good Christmas.
All right, bro. You too.
All right, take care, man.
See you, buddy.